Hello and welcome back to Life in Recovery. Did you know that you can't tickle yourself? Well, this video is going to be about how to get a job if you've been ill for a long time, and I'm not guaranteeing that you'll get a job offer at the end of this video, but hopefully it should contain some helpful guidance on what can be a pretty difficult thing to navigate. And it can be hard enough to find a job without the added complication of an illness and all that comes with that. But it is a wonderful thing to be able to feel that you're ready for to get a job and that you're well enough to do a job. I'm still incredibly excited and over the moon that I got to the stage in my recovery that meant that I could consider looking for a job. However, there were some problems for me. These may not be the same ones that you're dealing with, but there were three main ones. The first one being that I'd never had a job before. The second one was that I didn't have qualifications that meant that doors would just open for me, and the third thing was that my CV, such as it was full of holes and was very wishy-washy. And I want to address some of these issues in this video, and hopefully there will be some useful information in this video that's relevant to you. Point 2, that I didn't have as many qualifications as I would have done, I'd like to leave for another video so that I can focus solely on different options, different education options and ways that you can gain experience and the route that I took. Points 1 and 3, the lack of experience and the holes in my CV, are probably things you are struggling with, even if you've been unwell for a reasonably short period of time. And it's probably going to be pretty clear that there are gaps in your CV, and it's not always appropriate or easy to put this in your CV. So adding some sort of explanation to your covering letter might be a good idea. You don't need to go into detail, and certainly you'll want to reframe the experience and highlight the fact that you view the job that you're applying for as a great opportunity to re-enter the world of work. I definitely think one of the key things is to try to spin your ill health. Yes, it was a hard experience. Yes, it means that life wasn't straightforward, but you learned this and this from it, and that you've come out the other side stronger and more focused because of it. And one of the most common interview questions that I've had asked of myself is, what is your greatest achievement or accomplishment? And the great thing is you probably have a ready-made answer for this. You got well. And it makes for a pretty unique and positive answer, and one which shows that you're resilient and that you're determined too. It's practically a win-win question. Also, on the subject of interviews, I would be prepared that you may be asked about the gaps in your history and your ill health if you've already disclosed that on a covering letter or on your CV. So it's best to think beforehand of an answer so that you aren't flummoxed when the question is inevitably asked. But make sure you're as comfortable with your answer as possible and don't volunteer anything you don't want to. There are lots of things you can do to bolster your CV and also your levels of confidence and skills. Some of these I'll cover in the separate video, but one thing I did want to highlight is not to undervalue your extracurricular activities. For example, I have been able to use my experience of setting up and running Life in Recovery as an example to strengthen my applications, and you can overlook really valuable life skills. So asking yourself if you have talents that you can bring out for each application or interview that showcase your abilities. Don't underestimate common sense, your ability to multitask and adapt to change, and your communication skills. Another really important thing is not to assume that you're not going to get a job just because you don't have lots of qualifications and experience. I was actually offered a job after being convinced that I wouldn't get it, mainly because of this issue. And I'd been invited to an assessment centre, where you've gone through a couple of stages of the interview process already, and then you're put in a room of people who've been shortlisted for the job, and you do a panel interview, and then afterwards you're made to interact with the other candidates and work together on a task, and you're observed. So it's quite a highly intense and stressful thing to go through, and it's certainly one that I'd never had any experience of. And it was made more overwhelming getting to know each of the other candidates who had master's degrees and qualifications coming out of their ears, and I was sitting there thinking, I don't even have 5 GCSEs to my name. So I think that shows that perseverance does pay off, and it's not always just down to the qualifications and the experience that you have. And finally, one of my biggest concerns was that I would be viewed as weak or not a safe bet because I had been so unwell for so long. And some places of work require you to fill out a medical questionnaire, and it can feel quite exposing and concerning if you are still in need of some support. I have often felt like my illness means that I carry a lot of baggage around with me, and it can make things more awkward, and it can be frustrating and an upsetting experience to have to resurrect it or revisit it a lot. However, the key thing to remember is that your prospective employers aren't trying to catch you out or make you feel bad or make you feel weak, and they can make reasonable adjustments for you if necessary. And I remember being incredibly concerned and anxious that the company who offered me the job would take back that offer, would rescind that offer they'd made me, because I still needed to have regular appointments and checkups. However, I couldn't have been more wrong, and I had been honest, both in my application and in my interviews, that I'd been unwell, and they made me the offer knowing that. So I think trusting and believing in yourself and others is really, really important. And don't rule yourself out before you've even started. Being well enough to look for a job, whatever the job is an incredible step in recovery. One which may feel overwhelming, and it can make you question if you're ready for it. But as long as you take things step by step and are self-aware and honest, you can't really go too wrong. And hopefully this video has been helpful. I have popped a couple of links to articles in the description bar below, and also I've got the usual links to the blog and to Twitter and Facebook and all that jazz. But for now, I'll just leave you with a quote from Confucius, who was a Chinese philosopher, who wrote, "Choose a job you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life." So until next time, goodbye.